Senator Chris Van Hollen from Maryland is now the subject of a formal criminal investigation request filed by the Center to Advance Security in America for allegedly providing material support to a known member of MS-13, a gang which has now been officially designated as a foreign terrorist organization by the State Department. Van Hollen didn't just defend this individual from afar. In fact, he flew down to El Salvador, met with the gang member, and publicly vowed to bring him back to the United States. So, of course, where is the DOJ? And joining me now to discuss that question is James Fitzpatrick, the director of the Center to Advance Security in America, and the author of that aforementioned DOJ referral letter. So, James, thank you for joining me today. Thank you for your time. And take us through how you creatively found this statute. Because on the right, creativity seems to be a commodity in low supply. So whenever I see it, I want to talk about it and see how we can effectuate this. So tell us how you found it and
Sure.
and everything like that. Was it just going through the statutes? You know, when MS-13 was designated by the State Department, there's triggers, financial and FinCEN and otherwise.
That's right. Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Garrett. I appreciate it. So I think when I started to see the extent to which Senator Van Hollen was going to support this individual, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, I started to kind of just brainstorm a little bit and do some legal research. I'm an attorney. And I came across what's known as the U.S. Material Support for Terrorism statute. It's 18 U.S.C. 2339B. And it prohibits knowingly providing any material support or resources to a designated foreign terrorist organization. We know that Secretary Rubio designated MS-13 as an FTO early on in the administration. And there is ample evidence that Garcia is a member of MS-13, right? So we have various examples. I can just walk through a few.
With the tattoos?
Well, yeah, we have the tattoos on the knuckles. We have the Prince George's County, Maryland police stating as such in a investigatory report. And then we just have, several examples of criminal activity. We have multiple accusations of domestic violence from his wife. We also have a recently discovered by the Department of Homeland Security video from the Tennessee Highway Patrol where he is suspected of human trafficking. He has 8 individuals in his car that all are giving the same address to the police. So these are, plus you have the Attorney General of the United States that has classified him as a member of the gang. So all of these examples point to him being a member of a foreign terrorist organization. Therefore, Senator Van Hollen should, either knows or should know that he is a member of this group. And material support is defined in the statute. And part of the material support is expert advice or assistance, as well as offers of transportation, both of which he has kind of run up against here.
That picture of them dining in what's looked like a palatial restaurant, or at least palatial in terms of El Salvador, went all over the web, and he was proud of it. That he was,
right.
He was, doing this good deed of trying to represent his constituent, because this guy is supposedly a Maryland man in the mind of the left-wing
right.
press. And so I want to make sure that this segment and your letter gets sent around the fruited plains, because this is an angle to this, apart from just complaining online or complaining on television, that
right.
he needs to answer to this. And there has to be some form of fact-finding by the DOJ. And
that's right.
You mentioned the Tennessee Highway Patrol. We don't know what's at the bottom of this rabbit hole. Hopefully segments like this, letters like yours, will, if anybody else has in their possession evidence, because you said this guy's not just a gangbanger, he is hitting his wife apparently. Not my words, his own wife's words. She's the one that
Correct.
filed these complaints. The partners.
That's right.
So hopefully it'll inspire people in other jurisdictions to come forward, not just about Garcia, but about other known members of MS-13. What is your goal time-wise for this? What can we tell the officials who are going to receive this letter that, hey, we need to see some response?
That's a good question. I don't know if we necessarily can, right? I mean, I think the DOJ has kind of flexibility in what they're going to investigate and what they're not going to investigate. But with that, I will say, there's, as you mentioned, Garrett, there's things we don't know about this situation. We know that he met with Garcia. Obviously, we have photos of that meeting. We don't know what they talked about. We don't know if Garcia is still discussing, messaging back to members of leadership, MS-13 leadership. We don't know exactly what his position or rank is in the terrorist organization. So, I mean, it's just concerning in and of itself to have a U.S. senator sit down with, frankly, an unvetted beyond, the criminal activity we know about. There may be other activity that we don't know about. So I think that's what the investigation. I don't want to get ahead of it, right? I think we have we have an extremely professional at DOJ that's committed to law and order, and I trust their judgment. So I think kind of just presenting this as a discussion and see where they go with it, I think is essential. And I trust their judgment.
I have been very impressed with the president of El Salvador in one key respect, which is he has gotten serious about getting rid of the violence. And that Supermax prison, we call them Supermaxes, their version of that is incredible. What do you think about perhaps you mentioned we don't know what the transcript was of their conversation at that restaurant. Maybe they'll have some insider information. Maybe the folks from El Salvador will know. And that's an interesting angle, meaning when this interview gets done, I might send this to folks who know him, this letter, and say, hey, this is addressed to the U.S. Justice Department, but just know that we are wise to this scheme and we have statutes to guard against material support. For our audience, I'm ignorant about Van Hollen's background. Can you give the audience, you mentioned obviously who served in the House, what's his professional background? That could be relevant to his defenses or implication.
That's a good point. My understanding, I don't know it in extreme detail, but I do know that he served in, obviously, the U.S. Senate. He served in the United States House. I believe he served in the Maryland State Legislature in some regard for a number of years. He's an attorney, I believe. Beyond that, I'm not quite sure of his exact specialties in the law. But again, I mean, he is an expert in the operations of the U.S. government, right? He's a U.S. senator and former U.S. House member. He knows the ins and outs of the laws as it relates to kind of interfacing with. So, but to your point before that, I mean, I think that's exactly right. I mean, we should, President Bukele and his security folks may very well know this, and he's a great ally, and he's, his team may have been monitoring that, and if so, it would be good to know that information.
Yes, and we're not asking them to do anything untoward, right? They had every right. He was in their country. He's their citizen, right?
That's right.
So
yeah.
they had every right to know what was. Yes, they were extending. Most people don't realize, but you do. But just for the audience, he was being gracious. He was extending a sitting U.S. senator the opportunity to meet with a prisoner in his country. Van Hollen wasn't entitled to that. Bukele was saying, "Hey, we don't torture people down here. We don't torture people down here. This is a new El Salvador. This is one where mothers aren't maimed and raped on the street."
Yeah, that's right. And no, that's a great point. No one's advocating for that, right? I mean, he can just kind of sit there in prison and no one, he doesn't need to be mistreated. He just needs to be, away from the general population so that he can't cause any more harm.
Yeah.
To whether it's El Salvadorians or Americans. But to your point, yeah, that's exactly right. He's a very good ally. I think what he was doing was extending being gracious to a United States senator who, of course, he's a member of a party that greatly disagrees with President Bukele's outlook. But I think he was just being gracious and showing the world that everything's fine. He's just in prison and he's going to be staying here.
Yeah. Yeah, he's not being waterboarded. They were totally wrong to suggest that he was being mistreated in that prison.
That's right.
Well, James, thank you very much for your time. I'm going to send this letter across the fruited plains, and I ask the audience to as well. As a reminder, just as we leave, 18 U.S.C. 2339B. 2339B.
That's right.
Godspeed.
That's right. Thanks, Garrett.
We'll be right back with John Easton and Alex Haberbush, who recently submitted, just last week, an amicus brief to the Supreme Court about so-called birthright citizenship. Stay tuned.